How's it going, everybody? Daner here with North Central Coins, and welcome back to another episode of the most rare and valuable coins in the United Kingdom. In today's video, we're taking another trip across the pond and counting down my picks for the top 15 British sixpence coins. Besides serving as the guitar pick for Brian May, who is the lead guitarist of Queen, some of these incredible old silver coins can be worth some really good money. So join us as we explore the history, rarity, and value of these prized pieces of British numismatics that could be sitting in your change jar right now. Before I do get into this, I would really appreciate if you guys would smash that thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and also ring that bell notification so you can stay up to date with my new content as it is being released. And then without further ado, what do you say we get right into it and count down the top 15 British sixpence coins? Let's get it, guys. The British sixpence, also affectionately known as the tanner or the sixpenny bit, holds a significant place in the sterling coinage system. It represented a fraction of British currency, specifically 1/40th of £1 or half of 1 shilling. This humble coin has a storied history that spans centuries. The sixpence coin was first introduced in the year 1551 during the reign of Edward VI. For the majority of its existence, from its inception in 1551 until the year 1947, the coin was crafted from silver, embodying the intrinsic value of precious metals. After 1947, a shift occurred and it began to be produced using cupro-nickel. Prior to decimal day in the year 1971, when the United Kingdom transitioned to the decimal currency system, before this change, the pound was the highest denomination, divisible into 20 shillings, and each shilling consisted of 12 pence. This intricate structure shaped the way that Britons managed their finances for centuries. However, the winds of change blew in on decimal day and the sixpence assumed a new identity. Its value was redefined as 2.5 new pence, or 0.025 pounds in the decimal system. This transformation marked a significant shift in how the coin was perceived and used in everyday transactions. Interestingly, in the spirit of preserving tradition and celebrating the past, the Royal Mint reintroduced decimal sixpences in the year 2016. These modern sixpences are not actually for regular circulation, but are produced as commemorative issues to mark the festive season, particularly Christmas. What makes these coin renditions so special is that they are minted in sterling silver, paying homage to the historical roots of their ancestors. So from its origins in the year 1551 to its evolution in the year 1971 and its eventual resurgence in 2016, the sixpence coin remains a piece that embodies the history of British numismatics. Now that we've given you guys some information and context on the British sixpence coin, what do you say we get into this list and count down the top 15 most valuable sixpence coins? Now for this list, I'm only going to do from the Queen Victoria era onwards, as your chance of finding those is a lot greater than finding the older pieces. Most of those have been scooped up and accounted for at this point, and your chances of finding some of these actually aren't too bad, especially if you live in the United Kingdom. So as I start this list off, rather than working my way from the least to the most valuable, what I'm going to do is work my way through the years, starting with the oldest Queen Victoria up to the most recent valuable sixpence coin that you can find. So what do you say we start this list off with number 15, which is going to be the 1844 large 4/4 variety. Now to identify the 1844 large 4/4 sixpence coin, what you want to do is flip over to the reverse of the coin and take a look at the date. Now the date on the large 4/4 should actually appear larger than on the small variety, and it is the rare and more valuable of the two. If you can identify the larger date, it can be worth around 132 pounds for an MS60 and all the way up to 450 pounds for an MS65. I'm going to be giving you guys the values for these coins in British pounds because I'm assuming that most of the people watching these lists are going to be from the United Kingdom, but if you are from Canada and you are wondering the exchange rate, as of today, 1 British pound is worth $1.66 Canadian. So all of the coins that I am breaking down are worth quite a bit more in Canadian than they are in British pounds sterling. Number 14 on this list is going to be the 1845 sixpence coin. You don't need to identify any heirs or varieties for this. You just need to find an 1845. If you can identify the date on the 1845, it can be worth around £100 for an MS60, £350 for an MS63, and all the way up to £1,180 for an MS67. Another important thing to note is it is much more common for American, British, and Australian coins to score in the high MS range between MS67 and MS70. So if you can get any of these coins graded and they do score in that high region, you're going to see even higher values for that coin. Number 13 is going to be the 1848 8/7 variety. Now, to identify this, you want to flip over to the reverse and take a look at the date, and then take a look at the final digit, and if it looks like there is an 8 stamped over a 7, then you have yourself a fairly rare British 6 pence coin that can be worth around £400 for an MS60, and all the way up to £950 for an MS63, which is currently the highest graded known example. Number 12 is going to be the 1850 5/3 variety 6 pence coin. Now, to identify this, you want to flip over to the reverse and take a look at the date. Now, you're actually looking at the second last digit, the 5 in the 1850. Now, if it appears like the 5 is stamped over a 3, then you may have this very rare variety. The reason for these coins most likely existing is they were reusing dies from the previous years, or they got mixed in when they were actually creating the new dies. In terms of value, for the 1850 5/3 variety, you can get around £150 for an MS60, £360 for an MS63, and all the way up to £1,500 for an MS67, which is currently the highest graded known example. Number 11 is going to be the 1854 6 pence coin. You don't need to identify any errors or variety, you just simply need to find the date 1854. If you can identify that rare date, then you can get up to £938 for an MS60 example, and all the way up to £2,560 for an MS63, which is currently the highest graded note example. So this is definitely a key date in the Victoria 6 pence series. There aren't too many high grade known examples, so it's a good one to look for. If you were to find one and it scored in the high MS range, you could easily be talking a £10,000 coin or more. And that is for the 1854 Queen Victoria 6 pence. Number 10 is going to be the 1862. You don't need to identify any errors or varieties for the 1862. You just simply need to find the date. If you can find that, it can be worth around £500 for an MS60, around £1,000 for an MS63, and up to £1,200 for an MS65, which is currently the highest graded known example. Number 9 is going to be the 1863 6 pence coin. You don't need to identify any errors or varieties, you just need to find the date 1863, and if you can identify that, it can be worth around £382 for an MS60, £950 for an MS63, and all the way up to £1,700 for an MS65, which is currently the highest graded known example. Number 8 is going to be the 1876 Queen Victoria 6 pence coin. In terms of value, the 1876 can be worth around £108 for an MS60, £325 for an MS63, and all the way up to £1,000 for an MS66, which is currently the highest graded known example, and that is for the 1876 6 pence coin. Number 7 on this list is going to be the 1878 8/7 variety. Now, to identify this, it is very similar to the 8/7 variety that we discussed earlier. What you want to do is take a look at the last digit in the date 1878, and if it looks like there is an 8 stamped over a 7, then you may have this very rare variety. In terms of value, it can be worth around £620 for an MS60 example, and all the way up to £1,000 for an MS63, which is currently the highest graded known example. Number 6 is going to be another 1878 coin, and it is actually the rarer of the errors or varieties that you can look for, and it is known as the Dritenaire variety. Now, to identify this, what you want to do is flip over to the obverse of the coin, and usually where you would see the wording spelled out Britanniar, there is actually a typo and there is a D at the beginning spelling out Dritenaire instead of Britainaire. Now, I don't think this typo is intentional. I think it is most likely either a die mix-up or die deterioration or wear that caused this, but it is a super cool variety and quite significant if I do say so myself. In terms of value, there is only one price estimate currently, and it is £843 for an MS60 example. If you were to find one and it did score any higher, you could see some massive price jumps. You could easily be talking a £10,000 coin if it scored in the high MS range. Number 5 is going to be the 1883 small reverse variety. Now, there are a few different types for the 1883. I tried to come up with as much information as I could, but there are a few differentiating factors between the different 1883 reverse types. Now, if you can identify the reverse which has smaller and more detailed features, it is the more valuable of the varieties. It can be worth around 140 pounds for an MS60 and all the way up to 400 pounds for an MS63. And that is for the 1883 small reverse variety. Number 4 on this list is going to be the 1887 Young Head. In the year 1887, they actually minted 2 different variations of obverse designs for the 6 pence coin. They have a Jubilee design for Queen Victoria, and then they have the previously used Young Head design. If you can find one of these 1887s and it has the Queen Victoria Young Head, it can be worth around 67 pounds for an MS60, 109 pounds for an MS63, and 1,430 pounds for an MS66, which is currently the highest graded known example. Number 3 on this list is going to be the 1893 Jubilee Head. Now, as I mentioned for the previous coin that we just discussed, they actually had 2 different obverse designs for Queen Victoria in the year 1887. That year, Queen Victoria celebrated her Diamond Jubilee, and they released a special commemorative obverse design to celebrate that. So if you can find the 1893 with the Jubilee head, which was actually the last year that they used the Jubilee design before switching to the veiled head design. If you can find the 1893 6 pence Jubilee head, it can be worth around 2,750 pounds for an MS60 and all the way up to 4,730 pounds for an MS63, which is currently the highest graded known example. So now finally we can get out of the Victoria era of the 6 pence coins. Unfortunately, there aren't too many newer or modern pieces for the 6 pence coin that are worth a lot of money, which is the case with a lot of coins from around the world. When it comes to Canadian toonies and loonies, it is very, very rare to find one that is worth more than its face value. But there are a few that are worth some decent money, and number 2 on this list is going to be the 1923 King George V 6 pence coin. You don't need to identify any errors or varieties for the 1923, you just simply need to find that date, and if you can, it can be worth around 30 pounds for an MS60, 75 pounds for an MS63, and all the way up to 344 pounds for an MS66, which is currently the highest graded known example. Well, we have made it to number 1 on this list, and that is going to be the 1952 King George VI 6 pence coin. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, Brian May, who is actually the lead guitarist for Queen, uses the 6 pence coins as a guitar pick. The reason that he likes to use these is because they are silver, and silver has a unique tone, especially when you use them for a guitar pick. I play guitar myself, and the size and composition of the 6 pence coin apparently makes them ideal to use as a guitar pick. So a pretty interesting fact. I just really hope that he never used any of the coins discussed on this list today, as he probably would have worn the heck out of that thing and reduced their value to almost nothing if you could even tell what the date was anymore. But all of that being said, what do you say we get into number 1 on this list, the 1952 King George VI 6 pence coin. Now, in terms of value, this one is probably the least valuable coin on this list that we have discussed today, but it is still a good one to look for because it is the most modern one that we have discussed. In terms of value, it can be worth around 30 pounds for an MS60, around 100 pounds for an MS63, and all the way up to 175 pounds for an MS66. Could be worth a little bit more if it got a higher grade. You could be talking 200 pounds, but as is the case with coins from most countries, you usually want to look for the older pieces if you want to make the big bucks. Now, what do you guys think about my picks for the top 15 6 pence coins? Have you ever found any of the coins that we discussed today? Or if you feel like I left anything out, let me know down in the comments and I will be sure to include them in a future video. Also, if you enjoyed this, then I would really appreciate if you would smash that thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and also ring that bell notification so you can stay up to date with my new content as it is being released. But I think that is pretty much going to do it for this one, folks. So, until the next one, everybody, peace out and have a good one, y'all.